The Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game is one of the most strategic, intensely gratifying card games out there, rewarding players with innovative deck building, shrewd technical play, and boundless game knowledge. However, new and aspiring players still face arguably the biggest barrier to entry for competitive play, the extremely steep price points for the most powerful cards available. But what if we tried to remove that barrier? In this series, we're going to be maximizing the value of every penny at our disposal to see how well we can perform on a constrained budget. Each season, we'll be investing a baseline of $50 USD into an affordable deck core comprised of the most cost-effective singles on TCG player. For just an additional $10 per week, we'll continually expand on that core, transforming our build into the most competitive deck possible. Welcome to Rise of the Budget Duelist. Okay everybody, welcome back to the series. We are in week number 2 here, and I just want to first and foremost say thank you all so much for your super outpouring of your supportive and enthusiastic comments in the comment section of last video. It was super awesome to read all of them, and you guys are, dare I say, more excited than I am to be watching the series, but that's great actually. This is going to be a lot of fun here. We're going to just keep going and developing the deck and hopefully improving everything. So hopefully you guys all stick around and we'll have a fantastic time. But anyways, we do want to, of course, shore up some of the takeaways and kind of learn from them from the last video. So just to briefly summarize, first off, we need more aggressive options in the extra deck to kind of help close games because we went into time a lot. Second, we need to work on our own technical play, which is something that won't be fixed, just on a dime through deck building, but will be a continual evolution for how the series progresses. And third, we just really need a side deck, and that's pretty easy to fix as well. So we'll be primarily going through what we're going to be changing, as well as, of course, going through the price breakdowns as well. I should also mention that on screen for you guys, you will see sort of a template of an eventual build that we'll be getting around to. This is not by any means a finalized draft or something that is set in stone, but it's something definitely to work towards, and you can see some notable expensive cards, at least as of the time recording this video, being the Dragoon package, Ice Dragon's Prison, as well as the Zeus. So definitely wants to be hopefully eventually working towards those cards sometime down the line. This is going to be a long season after all. But anyways, let's go ahead and carry on. If you guys are interested in more detailed price shenanigans, feel free to check out the spreadsheet that is always in the description box below. And just as a general reminder, if you guys do want to purchase any of these cards or want to start your own budget journey, if you are a budget player yourself, feel free to go ahead and use my TCG player affiliate link down below. And also, if you want to go ahead and support me via your playmat, definitely go and check out their link as well. If you click the link in the description or use the promo code Emanon10YP, you'll get 10% off all of your purchases for your own custom sleeves and playmats, which are super high quality and really awesome. But yeah, let's get started. So the first thing we want to, of course, fix is the issue of just not really having an OTK mechanism or just aggressive options in general. And I think the first obvious thing that comes to mind is just slapping in a copy of Borrelsword Dragon into the extra deck. This is pretty much a no-brainer. This card definitely is great for budget players now. And, if you haven't picked one up, you definitely should if you are a budget player. This card really just solves games very quickly. Really is kind of just like Exodia from the extra deck, if you will. Even though, of course, a lot of people are playing Access Code nowadays, we really can't play Access Code right now when that card is sitting at well over 110 bucks. So we're just gonna go and go with the much better and cheaper option for our deck, at least. And this is super great. Really works well when you go for your Carabini pushes, and that can make it so your games end as early as turn 3, which is really good. And then another thing that I want to incorporate in the extra deck, thanks to your guys' suggestions actually, is a copy of number 30 as a Golem of Destruction. So this card really is in here because it is an answer to Dragoon. It's not the greatest answer to Dragoon, but if your opponent doesn't negate one of your BA hand effects, you can in fact just go and special summon this card and crash. It's, again, not the greatest, but it does work, and I think it's definitely worth playing over some of the other cards in our extra deck. Speaking of which, we do have to cut 2 cards to make room for these, so we're going to actually go ahead and be cutting the copy of number 47 Nightmare Shark. I think this one was pretty obvious. This was it was just kind of a funny card more than anything else, to be honest. It only came up in a situation where I could maybe combo with Barbar to try and choose a win, but realistically, because of how time works nowadays, it's not really how it used to be back in the day when people played this for time, since obviously end of phase is a thing. So because if you're already in battle phase, you really have to do a lot of damage for it to count, because you only got one shot at it. Borrelsword probably already fits that role better, even though it's theoretically harder to summon, but just in general, time is going to end a lot of the time in main phase anyways, so this wouldn't even come up in those cases. So I think this is a pretty clear choice. And then the second thing is actually going to be the Topologic Bomber Dragon, which did actually come up in the previous episode. But the reason I'm cutting it here is that I think, we have enough options going second for trying to clear boards. And we have 0 Boros as well, which incidentally hits back row. And that's something I kind of want to keep as something available. Now, just in case you guys are wondering, anything that I do, in fact, decide to cut from the list will be kind of in our reserves, if you will. So I'm, free to go ahead and incorporate these back into the deck at any time, of course, because we already paid for them, which makes sense, right? So yeah, that's going to be our adaptations into the extra deck. And now we're going to move on into the side deck. So we have about $4 to $5 left. Didn't really double check the math prior, but we did go ahead and decide to allocate that to just a very, very, introductory side deck. It's not going to be the greatest or the most refined, but it will be good for the purposes of just starting things off and having a little bit more options in games 2 and 3. So the first thing we want to play is 3 copies of Vanity's Fiend. This card's actually really good for going first, obviously. We do have a fair amount of normal summons in like Phoenix Rhino Warrior as well as Tour Guide, but we can always sub some of those out if we don't want to clog on them. And because of how many special BAs we have, we can just go in special BA and normal summon this guy, and that really should take care of a lot of different combo matchups that don't just have a native out to it. So really, really good. And if people aren't siding in things like Droplet or Dark Ruler against us because we are playing Trap BA, then that suits our purposes even better because they likely won't be able to side into outs either. The next thing we want to side in is a go second option. So we're going to be playing 3 copies of Lava Golem. This card is pretty good in certain matchups like Drytron where you just really need to clear things like the Ultimateness. It's another card that does relinquish your normal summon, but again, BA doesn't have the biggest issue with that. It can be somewhat problematic if you do need to resolve stuff like Graph or Seer, for instance, but generally speaking, you can definitely make it work, and clearing the board is definitely something that you really want to be doing, especially if you can just make the way for your traps to work. That definitely is well worth it. Next up is another go second option in the form of Dino Wrestler Pankratops. This card is really good, just all around, all purpose card, really an all-star for budget players, not much to say. Next up is actually a singular copy of Shaddoll Dragon. This card's pretty interesting. It's a card we can send off of Beatrice in background matchups. And I think that's pretty valuable because right now we don't have too many options for those in the main deck. We have stuff like Phoenix Wing Windblast, but generally speaking, our deck is pretty much tailored towards monsters. So this is kind of a nice way to kind of switch things up if we do find ourselves in that position. Next up, more stuff that's just generally versatile. 3 copies of Forbidden Chalice. This is one of my favorite cards just in general, but this card is pretty flexible. Good going first, good going second. Yeah, it's not a normal trap, but that's not the end of the world because it does help in going second if we need to stop certain cards that are just kind of hindering us from playing the game. Stuff like Abyss Dweller comes to mind. We could just chain it. And generally speaking, I think this card is not too bad of an option. And then next, we have more stuff for background matchups because, again, we don't really have too much in the main deck right now. So we're going to be going for 3 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. This card is great because it is a normal trap for backjack. I do want to eventually include things like Cosmic Cyclone, but this was actually one of the cheaper options for sure. And when you're trying to fit 15 cards into a very, very cheap side deck, this is what we got to go with. And then lastly, we have the 1 copy of Imperial Order. We're main decking 1 spell card, so we might as well just throw this in here. It really just shuts down a lot of decks when you're going first. So all in all, this is a pretty good, I think, starting point for a side deck here. And I should also mention that any unspent money each week rolls over into the next week. So that might play a role if we do decide to eventually maybe even forego spending money on a certain week. That's definitely something to keep in mind if we want to save up for cards that cost more than $10, right? So that's going to be it for the side deck. And let's just quickly recap the main and the extra, just in case you guys want a reference point. We didn't actually change anything in the main deck here, and we only made those 2 aforementioned changes to the side deck. So there's not a lot to go over, but let's just quickly recap in case you guys missed it last time or just want, again, a refresher. So first off, monsters, we got 3 Tour Guide, 3 Rhino, 3 Graph, 3 Skarm, 3 Farfa, and then for 2 of BAs, we have 2 copies of Seer, we have Libic, we have Alec, we have Hcabe, Barbar, Backjack, and then for the honorary monster, we got 1 copy of Foolish Burial. And that's it for the monsters and the singular spell card in the deck. And then for the traps, we have 3 copies of Fiend Griefing, 2 copies of Torrential Tribute, want to bump this up to 3 when we can, 3 copies of Phoenix Wing Windblast, 3 copies of Compulse, 3 copies of Lost Wind, and 3 copies of Breakthrough Skill. Rounding out the main deck, it is 40 cards. And then finally, for the extra deck, we have the 2 copies of Dante. We have 1 copy of Beatrice, one Break Sword, one Acid Golem newly added, one Virtual World Shell Jaja, one Equipped Engineer, one Purple Dante or Dante Pilgrim, and then for links we have Gravity Controller, Kiribini, Geonator Transverser, Nightmare's Phoenix and Unicorn, Zero Boros, and the newly added Borrelsword. So that's going to be our list, and let's go ahead and hop into some games. Alright everybody, welcome back to the duel recap section of the episode, and I do just want to quickly note before we get started that I am going to definitely make my best efforts to actually attend real life locals for next episode and beyond, simply because, for one, these DB replays definitely take a lot of time and are very tedious to reproduce. That's not to say it's not worth it for the sake of clarity for sure, but I do definitely think that it is in my best interest and in your guys' best interest as well to kind of have the real life setting ASAP, because that's the direction we want to be taking the series anyway, is to kind of showcase what we can do competitively in a real life environment. So I think that we're going to try and go for real life locals anyways. I think it'll also be more immersive to the viewing experience, but thankfully at least this time around we did manage to go on an alt account for Discord and actually record these remote duels from my PC, which makes things a lot easier for me to kind of transcribe and make things a lot more accurate as opposed to me kind of entirely relying on memory. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and get started here. So there's only a couple of rounds I think were really worth showcasing, but these were some really good matches. So this is, I believe, round 2, which was up against Trap Tricks, and that's a pretty interesting deck for sure. This is kind of a trap mirror when it comes down to it. But yeah, we thankfully win the die roll and we choose to go first. Our opening hand is pretty BA heavy, but that's not a bad thing here. We're just going to go and summon our BAs. We're going to make Dante, and then we're just going to go for the high value Beatrice, as we call it, putting the Farfa underneath it, setting our traps and passing with a Skarm Search for Graph, which is nice because we did draw Wing Blast, which is great pitch fodder. We're going to go ahead and pass our turn here, but our opponent is just simply going to set 5 and pass, which is utterly terrifying. In the end phase, we're going to try and Hcabe one of these back row via the Beatrice, but it does get ashed. We're going to add back our Skarm off the Dante and then try and hit one of these with the Wing Blast before going for Skarm here in the end phase just to get more pressure going. Of course, 4 back row is still a lot to play through, so we're going to have to do our best. Our opponent passes back, and we draw a Rhino, which is not ideal, but it's fine. We're going to go ahead and try and send backcheck this time, just so we can get maybe some more traps of our own to kind of help out here and outgrind our opponent. We go and switch Beatrice to attack position, but they actually revealed they are playing Compulse as well, which I found to be a bit surprising because we're on Compulse. But anyways, that definitely does take care of our Beatrice, so we're going to have to try and make a push in main phase 2. We go for Tour Guide into Seer, and then we try and make something happen here. I didn't expect to get this far when I make Dante, because the summon was actually successful, but then my opponent reveals that they actually have Ice Dragon's Prison, which actually banishes both of our Dantes, and we're only playing 2, so we actually have to play this entire game without Dante. We do get to resolve Seer for Skarm, and I make a brain fart here for some reason. I accidentally special summon Graph, even though I had a back row, which was totally illegal, and it's something that neither of us caught. But I actually did get punished anyways, as you'll see, because we actually do walk right into a Torrential Tribute anyways. So it didn't actually end up working out in my favor. Plus, having that Graph in hand would have been useful for a later play, which you guys will actually see. But yeah, we're just going to be forced to go to end phase and resolve our Skarm. Both of us are quite low in resources, so the game state is pretty simplified. And again, I'm playing without Dante, so I don't think I'm favored at this point. Our opponent does draw. They pick up another copy of a back row, which is one we stacked, of course, with the Wing Blast. So they're just going to set it. We do actually miss with this backjack because we did shuffle off the Skarm, and I kind of forgot about that. So definitely keep that in mind. We do draw another trap of our own. Our tour guide gets striked here, which is pretty unfortunate, but that is kind of just what it is going to come down to. We pass on this. Our opponent draws. They do pick up a copy of Prosperity here, and I don't obviously remember what they banish and what they excavate. But I do remember they pick up a Traptrix Dianea off of this copy of Prosperity. So now that they have a Traptrix monster, I actually finally know what they're playing, because I didn't know this entire time. I just thought it was like maybe Eldritch and they didn't draw any Eldritch cards. But yeah, I do feel forced to Torrential here because the Link monster Sarah I do know is unaffected by trap effects. So you just have to cut off the axis right here. We go ahead and just normal summon Rhino and try and get some offensive pressure going before our opponent draws again for turn. It's another back row. They're going to pass. We draw another trap, and we're just going to try and keep going here. We're going to normal summon Skarm, try and get some damage in. But our opponent actually Ice Dragon's Prisons and leaves Skarm in defense position on their field, which is hard for us to get rid of because it is 2k defense. We go into Kiribini in main phase 2. We trigger the Rhino, but they actually respond with Compulse on our Kiribini. which is very unfortunate. We're going to go and graph for a Seer, which definitely is actually a misplay because we're going to need this Seer later on, as you'll see in just a couple moments. We're going to go ahead and set our trap here, and then we're going to resolve Skarm for Tour Guide. So yeah, we're going to want Seer access later off this Tour Guide, and I definitely disregard that. So they're going to draw a new Traptrix monster with the Vitullo, which is actually one out of Lightning Overdrive, I believe. Again, kind of continuing with the theme of trying to keep them off of Sarah, I do compulse this monster. And also the Skarm doesn't die because it was negated via Ice Dragon's Prison as well. So with that, we stave off another turn. It's not looking pretty for us, but we're, I think, slowly trying to get more advantage going. We draw another trap. We're going to go ahead and go for our Tour Guide push now while I know they don't have anything. This is where definitely having the Seer would have mattered because Seer self-destructs due to having Tour Guide in the field. So I actually go for a bit of a scuffed play. I summon Graph off Tour Guide. I bring back Farfa off Seer, which also self-destructs. I banish the Skarm. And then if I had the extra Graph in hand from earlier, this actually could be lethal because in tandem with the Seer misplay, if I had a Seer left in my deck, I could go Carabini and then Graph summon Libic, and then I could go Carabini, send Seer, and then I could Seer, bring back something, and then go for Borrelsword, and then I could Libic summon the Graph out of hand, and then just attack for game with Borrelsword. But I did not do any of that. Instead, I'm just going to go into battle phase and then attack for some damage while we still can. And then here I'm, again, feeling a little bit of pressure. I don't have any way to actually clear a body of a Traptrix monster, so I actually go into Equipped Engineer for the first time in the series. With a Graph underneath it, this at least gets access to Farfa, which I think is pretty good. And the Skarm, of course, comes back from Farfa in the end phase. Our opponent draws for turn, and they actually summon a different Traptrix monster, which tells me that I know what their entire hand is, and this Skarm does actually self-destruct because it's no longer negated from Ice Dragon's Prison due to leaving the field off of Farfa. So I reason I don't actually have to waste my Engineer here because they actually don't have any traps to be able to combo with their Sarah. If they summon Sarah, I just attack over it and it's fine. So I decided to just not do anything, and then they kind of realized this too, that I'm not in a position to really have to answer anything, so they actually just pass back to us. So that's pretty good news. We also get to resolve the Skarm in the end phase here, which is not too bad. So we're just going to pick up the Barbar actually, and that's going to be pretty important for trying to get some damage in. We draw another trap. We're actually going to go Engineer, target our own, or itself rather, and then we're going to go for a Graph to summon out Libic, and then Libic will summon the Barbar from hand with its effects negated, so it stays in the field. And then we're going to switch manually the Engineer back to attack position, and it can't die by battle, so we just get to crash into the Atrax, and then we get to just attack with Barbar. So I'm feeling pretty good. We're on a pretty good timer. They do have another Traptrix, which we did know about because we bounced it earlier, but they actually drew into Parallel Exceed, and this actually unlocks the hand quite a bit. I wasn't sure what they were going to go for, so I didn't want to use Breakthrough Skill since that would turn on the Sarah, but they actually go for Utopia Double, which I was not expecting. So here they're going to activate it. I have to use Breakthrough Skill on it, but that does trigger the Sarah. So that is going to allow them to go for Mamelio, which does pop my other copy of Breakthrough Skill, and then it triggers the second effect of Sarah as well. So that's going to set a Trap Hole from deck. So this is actually kind of slipping out of our grasp a little bit. They actually go into main phase 2 though, and then they're going to link into the other new Traptrix link. I believe this is also from Lightning Overdrive, but in the end phase it specials back a Traptrix from the graveyard, and we just go ahead and draw for a turn. I realize I can just attack into this Utopia Double for game, and then they go and use the quick effect of it, but we actually do have the Breakthrough Skill in graveyard, which can respond to it since it's on our turn. It's a trap effect, so we can negate it, and that's just game. So that was a very, very crazy game one for sure. A lot of back and forth, but I really did enjoy that. So in game number 2 here, we're going to be going second, and that's not the least bit surprising. We have a great hand if we were to go first, but yeah, our opponent is definitely going to be starting things off. They're going to be summoning the Vitullo, and then they're going to go into the Sarah, and then they're just going to go and set a whole bunch of back row, which again is very terrifying. We draw for turn. We draw into another BA, which is fine. I figure we need to just try and clear the Sarah before we make any major commitments. So I'm going to just special this Hcabe and try and attack over it, but they are going to compulse our Hcabe back to hand, which does of course turn on all of the Sarah effects basically, because Mantis is a quick effect to proc the other effect of Sarah. That card generates so much advantage if left unanswered. We're going to go into main phase 2 and do our best here. We're going to overlay for Dante, which does get striked. It's a bit unfortunate. I actually add back the wrong card off of Dante here though. I believe I add back the Libic here, but I should have added back Hcabe just to try and force more back row later. But I didn't really think about that because it's been a while since I've really actively relied on Hcabe to bounce back row. They're going to use the Mantis quick effect in the end phase, and then they're going to trigger the other effect of Sarah to set Floodgate Trap Hole, which is really good against BA because basically it just means I won't be able to summon if I can't out my own Floodgated monster. They're going to go ahead and trigger Mantis again on their own turn, which triggers a Sarah again, and that's going to go and set a copy of Gravediggers, which is also really good against BA. They're going to go into battle phase here and just attack for some damage, and there's not really a whole lot that I can do about that. In main phase 2, they're actually going to clear into the Caleria. They're going to set another back row, and in the end phase, we're going to try and Storm Duster their stuff that I know that they recently set, and it's the trap holes that I can't answer, but they do have Solemn Judgment, which really is unfortunate for us. We go ahead and Phoenix Wing one of their back row, and we go ahead and trigger Graph. If we had Hcabe here, that would have been nice to bounce the Gravediggers for sure, but we go ahead and bring back Seer. We draw Pankratops, which isn't too bad. We're going to go ahead and summon a Libic, and then on that summon, they go ahead and actually use this copy of Ice Dragon's Prison, which gets rid of our Graph and Seer, and that's devastating. Luckily, we can at least summon Pankratops, even though it costs us our Libic just to try and attack over the board. It does allow us to clear the back row, but we are basically on top deck mode. Meanwhile, they actually have pressure on board. They're able to go for some damage here in their next battle phase, and then they're going to go and link off into Sarah again, because Caleria actually does trigger the Sarah, which I think they forgot to do, but they brought back Mantis anyways, so they were able to just do it off the Mantis regardless. So it really didn't matter here. We were able to, or we weren't able to actually just sufficiently clear the monsters, which ended up being the problem as well. So we draw, it's a Skarm. It has 2k defense, hopefully it's enough. We're going to go ahead and watch them full combo, quote-unquote combo, their Mantis and Sarah again, which has just been generating them a billion cards this entire game. They're going to draw for turn. They draw another Traptrix monster. They're just going to overlay into Redoer, and then once I realize that clears Skarm, we're just going to go and pack this one up. So in game 3, we're deciding to go first, and our hand actually looks really good. We have way to make Beatrice, so we're just going to go for that. We're going to special our BAs, make our Dante. We're going to go and detach Graph. We actually don't hit anything relevant here, but that's okay because we're just going to go Graph into Seer, and then we're going to go for our link 2 of the Native Transverser. We're going to trigger Seer Dante. We're going to grab our Beatrice and then sit on our back row. Even though we have Phoenix Wing with no cards in hand, it is actually fine because Dante will just add us back that card to pitch later. But our opponent declares end of main phase, and then end of battle phase. And then I realized the writing on the wall, we're going to get evenly matched here, and that definitely is not something we're prepared for at this current moment. We have no judgments or anything yet. So we're just going to go ahead and get rid of our entire board. Our backjack does get to resolve, as well as our Dante, but we're on definitely way behind on resources already. Our opponent does get to, in main phase 2, Pot of Prosperity, so they had a high chance of seeing evenly, even if they didn't hard draw it. They're going to pick up an Ice Dragon's Prison off of that. And from here, we are basically, we're basically just in for the long one. We do Phoenix Wing Windblast this copy of Mantis, although they just get another Traptrix to their hand anyways, so it's not like it really accomplishes that much. We do go for Seer, bring back Dante, and try our best. We do go for the end phase backjack for Fiend Griefing, but the thing is that they never get a monster engrave unless they link summon, and by that point they have Sarah on board, and if we let Sarah resolve, we basically lose. So we're just trying our best to stave that off as much as possible, but they really just have everything that they want to. We're supposed to take damage, but not really that big of a deal. We're gonna go ahead and watch them summon the Remelia that we saw them add last turn, and we don't really have a good response to any of what they're doing. They're gonna Ice Dragon's Prison away our Fiendish Rhino Warriors. They don't have to deal with it, which also triggers Sarah. We do Fiend Griefing to send Skarm to try and make a play for next turn. But it really isn't going to accomplish that much. They have their whole engine going right here, and they could have gotten in, I think, for more damage this turn, but really, we have actually just 0 cards right now. We do get to at least trigger the Skarm in the end phase, but it really isn't going to accomplish that much, especially when the Rafflesia just can send Gravediggers to negate it. So that definitely is not, it's definitely not where we want to be. We're on top deck mode, and a singular Compulse is not going to be enough against their unaffected monsters, and we will just concede there. So match number 2 in this video is, I believe, round 3 from the locals, and this one is Dinosaurs. Both of us are 1-1 at this point, I do believe. So we actually lose the die roll, but they make us go first anyways. Keep in mind this is pre-ban list. So our hand is double Farfa, so I guess we're just gonna go for Dante and hope for the best. I mean, that's really all you can do in hands like these. So we're gonna go and mill 3, see if we get lucky. We do actually hit a backjack, which is quite nice, but they actually Cypher Gear Gamma our Dante just to get off board. Maybe they just didn't want us to hard make Beatrice, which is fair. But yeah, basically we're just sitting on backjack plus traps. so we're just going to have to wait for a B engine to come back online. They open Fossil Dig here, which obviously is going to get them an Overraptor, and then they're going to go for Lost World. I'm not sure if they were playing the scrap stuff in their build. I didn't see it all match, so I'm just assuming that they didn't. But they're going to go ahead and give us a token with Lost World, and they're going to add Misk off of Ovi. Once they go to pitch this Misk, I do decide to just go ahead and fire the Fiend Griefing because it's the best time to do it. So Misk going back into the deck. And we're also going to chain the Backjack just to hit another copy of Fiend Griefing before we shuffle our deck after sending Skarm with this Fiend Griefing. So that is pretty good. We have a second copy of Fiend Griefing for later. I actually do go ahead and compulse our own token just so our opponent can't get value off the Lost World. And that is pretty good news for us because it means our opponent pretty much just has to pass. We're also resolving Skarm in the end phase, so I'm not feeling too badly about this one. We're going to go ahead and draw for turn. It's another BA, which is not too bad at all. And we actually do have game from here. So we're going to go Tour Guide into Graph, and then we're going to go for our Carabini push. So we're simply just going to trigger Graph here. That's going to summon out a copy of a Seer from deck. And then from here, we can go into Carabini's effect, which sends Libic and summons this Farfa out of hand. And then we're going to go and link summon a copy of Borrelsword Dragon. We're going to go and activate this copy of Seer in the graveyard, which brings back our Dante. And we also didn't actually go through Beatrice at all, so we get to freely make it here, so that's an extra, bit of damage there. Our Lost World is reducing our monster's attack, so we actually are 100 shy of lethal when the math is all said and done. But luckily, we actually have a neat trick up our sleeve, which is in battle phase still, we can go Fiend Griefing to actually just send a copy of Barbar and do the extra damage for games. So there's our first Barbar win in the series, which is pretty cool. But yeah, moving on into game number 2 here. We actually are forced to go first again, which is not really too surprising. It is dinosaurs. We open a lot of monsters, which is not the greatest, but it's okay. Opening Backjack is really the worst part of it, though, simply because Beatrice can't send it now. We do still get to make Beatrice at least, so we get to go and end on that, and we also get to end on our Skarm search as well, which is not the worst. But Beatrice lost win against Dinos. I'm not feeling the most confident about, but we're just going to have to hope it gets there. But our opponent reveals that they not only have Dark Ruler for our Beatrice, but they also have Cosmic for our one back row. So we are definitely we're definitely reliant on just the materials under the Beatrice getting us there. They're going to go Lost World and Fossil Dig, of course, and they're going to pretty much do the same stuff as last time. They're going to go and trigger both of the effects, and they're going to give us a token here, and they search a copy of Baby off of this this Ovi here. Now, I think no matter what I do here, I can't really win because I have to pretty much Farfa this token as soon as I go for Misk, so they can't Ovi target it. I do this here because obviously, the Lost World is preventing me from targeting anyways, so there's not really a better chance to do it. But I did see them add the Baby off of the Ovi, so like Misk summoning out Archosaur accomplishes what they wanted to do anyways, so not a whole ton I could have really done there, especially with the Beatrice, of course, still being negated. So we're doing our best, but our opponent, of course, gets to now just full combo here. They resolve the Archosaur plus Baby, so they also will have a copy of Evilzar Dolka by the end of this. They're going to go into Link Kribo and secure Gardner. There is the Dolka right here, and then they're just going to fire off the copy of the Double Evolution Pill that's in their hand, and that is going to net them a copy of UCT. So this is definitely a lot for us to deal with. We are not really in a position to do so, and UCT also sends Beatrice, so she can't even float into her Purple Dante. Not that it would matter, because it would just get cleared anyways. Our Dante does get negated by the Dolka, and we do just have to try and draw for turn. We draw into a Fiend Griefing. Here I think maybe I should have set Backjack, because this was always going to be negated by Dolka, but still in the end, we were really far behind. I do go and Fiend Griefing into standby phase to follow up Misk, and hope that's good enough. And we send a copy of Graph just to try and get some more plays for the next turns. However, it's not really the greatest because they still have another dinosaur in their hand, so they can just do pretty much all this all over again. They have Lost World, which also kills our Seer, so they have to bring back the Dante. And then they're going to go into battle phase. They're going to secure Gardner, attack over the token and protect it, which prompts, of course, the Baby, and that gets them back into Ovi, which gets them back into Misk. So the Fiend Griefing didn't really do anything at the end of the day, which is pretty unfortunate, but we're not quite dead here. We're like pretty much dead in terms of the board state, but we're not physically dead just yet. We do get to resolve Dante one last time to go and add back Seer before they attack us for some pretty good damage. And then they're just going to go and activate Misk in main phase 2. And they also Misk for 2, which summons a copy of Petite. and then they just let it destroy itself during the end phase so they can get a copy of Pankratops. And that takes care of pretty much any back row that we could possibly top deck, and that one is not it. So we lose that one, and we're just going to simply move into game number 3 here. So in game 3, we do decide to go first, even though they want to go second, just because I don't feel confident in our ability to actually consistently go second just yet, even with like Lava Golem in our side deck. So we just go ahead and hope for the best. We, again, only draw one trap, which, you know, I'm not feeling too great because it's literally the same end board as last time. Luckily, we did have the Backjack access in our deck. They actually ash our Scarm, which I'm fine with because it means that our Beatrice probably won't get ashed unless they have multiples. So they're going to go for Lost World for the 3rd game in a row, actually, and they are going to go and Lost World with Archosaur this time, so it kind of telegraphs a pretty weak hand overall, especially when they destroy Misk and not Baby off of this Archosaur. So they're going to give us a token, and they're going to go into Linkuriboh into a Secure Gardner. I'm just waiting for them to go Battle Phase before I fire off the Beatrice to forfeit my token, but they actually decide to go ahead and use this, this Double Evolution Pill instead. That's going to banish Chu from grave and then summon out UCT. They're also going to Misk from hand and then banish Chu to summon a copy of Baby. And from here, I kind of see where this is going. They're going to try and UCT, and here I have to respond with Beatrice. So I ordered this chain wrong in the replay, but we do it right in real time. So it's supposed to be Baby Chainlink 1, Graph Chainlink 2, Backjack Chainlink 3, and then Farfar in a separate chain to hit the token. And then it would also be in chain with whatever might get summoned there. But yeah, they go ahead and resolve the Baby for Overraptor. In the end, everything ends up being correct. So when they go and send this Giant Rex here, I'm kind of curious about that one, because normally I would think that they would send something like a Misk for follow-up for next turn maybe. So here I'm thinking maybe they just have like a second hard-drawn UCT in their hand. So because of this, I do decide to actually go and use this copy of Backjack in my graveyard to set Fiend Griefing, so I can just Fiend Griefing it back. And this is just me kind of hoping that my read is correct. I have no way of actually telling. But we're going to go ahead and send a copy of Scarm and then just hope that was good enough. Luckily, they actually just go to Battle Phase where we can Compulse thanks to being free from Misk and the Lost World targeting protection. And that actually puts us in a really good position because they can't clear our board. So we get to resolve Scarm since we sent it off the Fiend Griefing earlier. And now we get to search for Tour Guide, and that is really, really good for us. We do get to go and draw a Barbar, which is actually a great draw, as you'll see, because this is actually the exact same OTK that you saw in Game 1. So we're going to go Tour Guide and Graph. We deviate a little bit, of course, but we go for Kiribini here. We're going to trigger the Graph, summon out a copy of Farfa, because we do need to Farfa away the Secure Gardner since it does prevent damage once. And then so we have to go for the Libic to summon out Barbar from hand. And then we're going to link everything away and then order the chain such that Farfa is Chainlink 2, meaning that it banishes the Secure Gardner before Barbar actually ends up burning for 900. So that's just a bit of a play to kind of get around the Secure Gardner protection of damage. And we're kind of left with the same monsters, so we're just going to go and go for a game right here with this 3400 attack Borrelsword. So we actually take this match against Dino, putting us at 2-1 at this locals. Now, I did mention that there were a couple of matches here that I didn't quite think were worth showcasing off in full. The first of which was round 1 up against a poor ABC player who unfortunately just bricked both games. Didn't really get to see Union Hanger the entire match, but that's just kind of how the deck is. I think BA has a strong matchup against ABC anyways, but especially if they never get to summon a Buster, that definitely helps out. And then round 4, as you see on the screen right here, is up against Drytron, and they went first, winning the die roll, so that's step 1 to losing. They definitely opened full combo. They had Alpha Zeta, so that was the full end board, as you can see here with the Ultimateness, IP, back row, and a lot of bodies on board with Ava already resolved, so a couple Fairies in hand. And when they go to use Beatrice to go for the Ava again during our draw phase, I decided that is more than enough for us to just go and concede. Game 2, however, is pretty interesting. So we do go first, and we did actually manage to open the Vanity's Fiend plus BAs alongside a couple of traps. So we just kind of go for it and hope that it is good enough to carry us all the way there. Now, our opponent actually does normal summon Diviner, which isn't out since it can send Entis, so we are forced to break through Skillless. It's pretty good because it does buy us a turn. They do have to pass, but unfortunately, we can't apply any pressure ourselves because, of course, of the Vanity's Fiend. So we are just kind of going into very, very simple beatdown mode. However, our opponent actually drew 2 of them, so they're just going to go for Diviner anyways. Or they set is Compulse, so we can't really do much about it. We're just going to have to watch them combo. There's not really a great point where we can Compulse here. I do it on the Mu Beta Fafnir when they go to Meteonis. Maybe I should have done it on Diviner just to deny the level 6, but in any case, they were definitely playing past the singular Compulse anyways, so they could have just ended on something similar to this regardless. And we have an interesting play. So Breakthrough Skill actually can negate the ultimate here since it can't respond to graveyard trap effects. So we have a little bit of a reprieve. We go for what we can here. Now we do know that there are a lot of fairies in their hand because they resolved Ava, and they're going to resolve it again right here. So we're going to do our best here, summoning our BAs. We do get to resolve Graph and Dante, but it really isn't going to amount to that much when they have another Orange Light just ready and waiting to negate and ruin our day. They even just use it on the Olympic in hand, which is fair enough because we set Compulse and then realize we are not getting out of this one. So we finish our locals 2-2, which I think is actually a pretty good improvement, but let's go ahead and conclude our thoughts. So just some concluding thoughts to wrap up this video. I definitely think we made some improvements for sure. The deck felt a lot better. I didn't really actually have as many issues at all really with time, considering the fact that we really were just able to close out games quickly, or we kind of lost early as well. But even though the games can be grindy, we at least have a much more solid win condition, which I am happy to report is very effective for sure. Obviously, Borrelsword is such a strong card. But yeah, let's go and do 3 key takeaways and just kind of things to keep in mind for next time. First is the fact that Vanity's Fiend actually is not very good anymore. This is a card that I think was classically cited in BA, and I was kind of thinking that it would still be good. But, decks have a lot of outs nowadays, like things like Imperm and, Droplet, stuff like that are really, efficient main deck outs or at least side deck outs to it. A lot of people can really just play around this card, even if they're on a heavy combo deck. Plus, when you're summoning Vanity's Fiend, you can't do anything, so your opponent really could just keep setting and passing until they draw their out, and you can't summon your BAs either. So I actually think I'm just going to cut this card from the side deck completely. So that's going to be takeaway number 1. Takeaway number 2 is that I think the quality of main deck traps could be improved still. Lost Wind has actually been underperforming quite a lot. And I think that we could definitely try and get something better. Stuff like Solemn Strike comes to mind. We want Trap Trick eventually as well. And so these are things that we definitely want to try and aim for as well. And then the third is that I think our side deck needs to be a bit more tailored specifically towards decks that we might be trying to expect. That is a little bit difficult to assess, to be fair, because of the fact that, of course, locals can be so diverse. But I think we could just try and optimize this a little bit more in general. So I think those are going to be the 3 things that we're going to try and look at and improve for the next time. But that is going to be it for this episode. So thank you all so much for tuning in and for watching. I want to thank my patrons as usual. And if you guys do want to actually catch these episodes a day early, you can actually go ahead and support me on there. Any dollar amount will actually get you the episodes in advance. So if you're interested in that, please be sure to support me. And if you really like this series, I would very much appreciate it. And that's going to wrap things up. So thank you all so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like as well as any thoughts or feedback in the comments. Subscribe for more informative and competitive Yu-Gi-Oh content. If you want to, you can follow me on all social media platforms or support me with the links in the description as usual. And until next time, I'll catch you in the next video. See you guys.